And good morning, or evening, or afternoon, or all of that kind of stuff. We're quite an international bunch here. Welcome, everyone. So this thing doesn't actually have a name, though I'm thinking I'm enjoying so much talking to everyone. I'm probably going to start issuing it as a audio podcast as well. This is rather selfishly. This is my chance to talk to really interesting people and pick their brains and learn from them. Uh, and then I share that as my virtuous side with as many as we can. But what's really nice is that this time of year, it's easier to get people from Europe, and the time zones just work over the New Zealand summer months better for they work a little bit better. They're not perfect for people over in Europe. So I think we have a couple of people who have dialed in. Someone dialed in at 1:30 in the morning a while ago from the country where Casablanca is, Morocco, which I thought was really dedicated. Okay, so can I get you all, just for the sake of entertaining me, could you just pop into the little uh, chat thingy where you're coming from? Not philosophically, um, physically. So we've got Jim from Arizona. Excellent. I think we might actually have two from Arizona coming in here. We've got Seraphim also from Arizona. We've got Hugo from Christchurch. Ben is at a symposium, which sounds very fancy, in Rotorua. Uh, Andreas is from Germany. Karlsruhe. I'm sorry for mispronouncing that. Close enough? Cool. We've got Porirua. John, hello again, John. We've got Monica, Wellington, sort of closely nearby. Joe is from Upper Hutt, which is very important, the upper bit. It distinguishes it from Lower Hutt. Very, very important. Um, and Attila, he's in my top of my right-hand screen there, is a Hungarian coming to us from Auckland, which is most excellent. We've got Richard Cornelius is in the UK, and he's looking forward to this. Oh dear, sorry, Richard. I don't want to disappoint you already, but we want to lower your expectations and then over deliver. We've got Jack. Jack. Oh, so good to have you back. That's my little Jack mantra. Jack, it's good to have you back. From Boston, where it's getting colder and colder and colder. Um, I know because I see too much American news. Welcome back, Jack. Uh, Now, this one's going to throw me. I'm sorry. I can never get the J's. The J letter internationally throws me. So we've got Jap. Yap. I'm so sorry for pronouncing it. Maybe I got close on one of those. From the Netherlands, which is most excellent. Whereabouts in the Netherlands? If you could pop it in the chat, because it's one of my I think it's just such a lovely part of the world. Richard from Auckland, Doug from Iowa, excellent. What I would like to do now is we're just going to have a conversation. So feel free to ask any questions because you're all coming to this from different places. I'll kick off the conversation. Hugo and Ben are not only the entertainment, but they're kind of like the heroes of this story. And uh, some of you will know some of the things that we did, and they may even have familiar names or different names. But this is going to make it real. And I suppose my starting point for this is that probably about this time last year, I got a very nicely written email from Ben talking about how he works for a company called Specs. And we may talk a little bit about. I love the purposefulness of the company, Ben and Hugo, and you were just interested in critical chain stuff, and then you said you manufacture stuff, and I must admit, my first thought was, I don't really do manufacturing, and I I kind of cherry pick critical chain, but I don't do critical chain stuff. So it was kind of like, oh, and I had this awkward thought: how do I reply back nicely to these lovely people? So maybe I should get Ben. Could you introduce Hugo? And then
Yeah.
Hugo, could you introduce Ben? It's much easier that way.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Andy.
Hugo, up until very recently, was our lead engineer at Specs. So he worked with me for 4 years and was kind of our um, team wrangler, process project manager person. So Hugo's very, very switched on and yeah, familiar with all the medical device world things. And is kind of a great mentor as well. So he's working a lot with the younger team members and helping us within the company work through all the requirements that we had to tick off for projects, and as well as yeah, helping keep all of our internal teams aligned and delivering the things that we needed from them to help us get projects done as well. One of the things with the physical product and manufacturing that is that there are some pretty detailed handover requirements and needing to bring a lot of people on board with the product. So while we're trying to translate it out of our minds or turn what prototype we've been working on into a product that can be reliably and repeatably manufactured through a factory, there's a lot of coordination with other teams in the business that has to happen. And yeah, Hugo's was kind of our main man for that.
Yep. And Hugo's an engineer by
Yes,
training, like all of the
yes,
people in your team, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, proper engineer, not a software engineer, which I like that. Yeah, handy with a screwdriver. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you. Hugo.
Yeah, so Ben is also an engineer. So he trained as a mechanical engineer as well. And he's probably one of the more experienced people at the team at Spec. So he's been there 5, 6 years. And over that time, the company has grown both in its size and the products offered and the region serviced. Ben's been a huge part of that growth. He's helped to lead the design and development team. So he's got a real eye for product development and um, yeah, all the way through to the end user. And then he's been leading the team as well. So he was the product development manager. Yeah, he was both my boss, but also a partner in crime in many
Mhm.
ways as
Yeah.
we wrangle projects and products together.
I think
So
that
yeah.
was one of the things that stood out to me is how closely you
Mm,
two you got a lot in common, but your differences complement each other really, really nicely, and you just seem to get along really well. As did the whole team. But that it's
mm,
surprising if you want to work together and improve and get better. Work enjoying each other's companies very, very important. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Hugo. Thank you, Ben. So we got engineers, mechanical engineers making
Mhm.
a physical product in Christchurch. Could you guys actually? Can I just say? I'll start with the product. I'm going to skip forward a little bit. It was really. I came down and visited you guys, and then we went. And I think this is just one of the most. It was just. I don't know. It was like a breath of fresh air when we went and we drove in, and we worked with. Um, a physiotherapist, I think, that
mm,
or occupational therapist. And you, Ben, I remember you grabbing out a set of, I think it was screwdrivers or Allen keys or something, which is hardware as I'm concerned, and I know nothing about. And you were busy working with the wheelchair, and you were adding on, I think it was the Manta, the seat that goes on the wheelchair
mm,
because you're in an interesting place where you on the it looks like you make cushions and you do, but that's not any that they don't sit on couches, they sit on wheelchairs, and they're really serious medical product that just makes it was just heartening to see what a difference that the stuff that you built makes to real people every day. And I started noticing wheelchair users, and I started seeing your product. And I spoke to a guy in my gym, and he was just talking. He just said, "Look, we think about our bums a lot more than other people
Yeah.
do," and it was
mm.
just like opened up a whole new world. So, could you guys explain that perhaps a little bit more engineering kind of style?
Yeah, so Specs as a business is core product is complex wheelchair seating. And when I say complex, it means that it's wheelchair seating for um, users with complex disabilities and complex needs. It means that we are often having to kind of provide a solution that is tailored to them in many, many ways. And I think what Specs does incredibly well and has focused on, and it's kind of been the point at which the company's grown from, is that we can service all of that really wide range of needs with a few core off-the-shelf products. And so we're able to produce those in Christchurch and then ship them to, it's now over 40 countries all around the world. And we're able to take people out of solutions that were taking kind of 6 months to manufacture and were a fixed shape. So they were trying to accommodate for that unique shape at the point that they did that appointment, and that they had that seat prescribed. But then, yeah, we're able to service that with an off-the-shelf product that's adapted at that point of sale, and can keep being adjusted. So if their needs change, or if they have surgery or something and their body shape changes over time, then you're actually able to just come back and make small adjustments to that seat, and it can keep serving them for much, much longer and keep maintaining and protecting their posture for much longer.
Yeah. So this is really, really serious products, and the actual engineering of that is, in my mind, I think when I looked around your factory, it was like there were clearly sewing machines. But and that's obviously part of it, but there's just so much that you're thinking about trying to make a really adaptable product for people who for just such a variety of people and customers and users. And so could you talk a little bit about how so you've got product development and manufacturing, and I go, okay, got that. But then you've got this whole network of people out there who are actually effectively talking to your users and your customers. Could you talk about that a bit? Because that was invisible to me as well before we spoke.
Yeah. Actually, what might be helpful as well is if I explain that wheelchairs, how wheelchairs work. So
Yeah.
when you buy a wheelchair, you get some wheels and then some tubes that connect the wheels together. And that's the wheelchair. And then the seating that goes onto that is separate. And that means that you can match the wheelchair to the environment that user is in, and you can match the seating to their postural needs or their medical needs. Yeah, so we focus pretty closely on that seating element. But then one of the unique and really awesome competitive advantages that Specs has is a really close relationship with the sister company and actually the company that founded Specs, Medifab. And so Medifab do sales and distribution of complete range of mobility products, including wheelchairs and our seating and all types of other stuff through New Zealand and Australia. They've got multiple therapists in their team and a lot of investment in product training and education as well, and then all their sales reps. So we have this ability to reach out to all these people throughout the company and work really closely with them in product development. I can get a prototype out and test it, and can get all the details that we need about exactly what has and hasn't worked for that client, what their clinical interpretation is of maybe why that hasn't worked, and actually was that the right product for them, and how would we adjust that going forward. So that connection is really awesome for that iteration, and
it felt very human.
Products.
Having worked with a lot of banks in different places in the past, that this is the most human and purposeful place that I've done any work with, and that was part of the vibe that came through. It was just it's kind of really nice, important, but also serious stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, there's a lot of care and empathy in the way that the work's done, and for these users, the equipment is part of their life. A wheelchair is their access to family or hobbies or friends, or it's their comfort throughout the day. So if you talk to a user, they'll have a very close relationship with their equipment, because it enables living.
Yeah, I know it's not remotely comparable, but I have hearing aids, and it's funny. I actually look at these with affection sometimes, because I just know what a difference that they make, and yet they're just a few little electronic things. But the care that goes in for people who have more medical needs is quite different, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, cool. That's good. So we've got complex products.
Mm.
Yeah, seriously complex products. Doing quite purposeful stuff. You manufacture them, and then you distribute them around to lots of countries all around the world. And when they're out there, the distributors have to, and the orthopedic, no, I don't know what the physical therapist kind of people work with the end user, and they set it up and all of that kind of stuff, which is makes sense. But then there's a bunch of folk who actually design the new products. And that's your team. But I'm wondering if you could, before we go to that, there's like an origin story. And I'm wondering if you could go back. Is it Bruce, if I got the name remember? But yeah, could you maybe talk about how the
How
company
the company, yeah.
started? Yeah.
Yeah, so the company was founded by Roger Maskell,
God.
and he actually started out as an automotive upholsterer. So he was refurbishing car interiors. Um, and he started doing a little bit of work through ACC in New Zealand, which is like a
Hmm.
private insurance, public insurance thing for accident rehabilitation. And he started doing modifications to car interiors for people with disabilities who had accidents and needed support to get them back driving and get them back to work.
Yep.
And so he started doing these modifications to the vehicles and working with the same physical occupational therapists that prescribe wheelchair seating. And those therapists started liking the modifications and the way that he was working with clients. This is way back in 1990.
Mm.
And asked him if he would be able to take a look at their wheelchairs as well, because they weren't happy with the standard of the wheelchair seating that they were getting
Yep.
in New Zealand. And so, yeah, Roger started out doing custom made wheelchair seating, the same kind of approach, um, and then grew the business that way for quite a few years, um, and brought in more people on the team and trained them up. And there were all these kind of artisans in the business, so
Yes.
they were doing all the visits, and then they were going back to the workshop and carving out the foam and covering it up and delivering that one
Hmm.
system for that user. Um, and yeah, set that up, and we're traveling up and down the country, North Island, South Island, lots of travel, lots of movement, and getting really positive feedback. People were enjoying the wheelchair seats that they were getting. They were getting good results, but they just couldn't be everywhere. And there
Mm.
was a request that they started getting, um, just to try and make something that they could ship out to other parts of the country,
Right.
where they didn't have to go and make that custom product for that user. So the
Oh, so
therapist could
that's really
actually
interesting.
send through some information and say, hey, here's kind of what I'm after. Can you give me
Yep.
something that will get me close? And then I'll do the adjustments and I'll make it work and I'll deliver the
Okay.
system. But we don't need you to drive from Auckland to Dunedin, which is what, 2 8-hour drives in a ferry,
Yes.
to deliver that system. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then the company just kind of just grew and grew,
Mm,
and it
mm.
grew and
Yeah, because that wasn't a New Zealand problem. So I think I started
mm,
out just solving that problem for a therapist in
yes.
Dunedin, um, but then saw that the applications that could have all around the world, um, and yeah, it kind of grew the business from there, across New Zealand, through Australia, and then yeah, now we're selling direct to market in the UK,
Yep.
but all through Europe, North America, South America, um, Asia
It's
as
pretty
well.
cool.
Yeah.
I love that. It's a little starts. It's like Steve Jobs in a garage. They're kind of like mythical, but it didn't start in Silicon Valley.
Mm.
It started down south. Okay, I
Mm.
like that. That's cool. Right. So now that I guess that's the context and the background. Uh, Could you tell us? I'm not sure who I'm asking here. Both of you. My memory of like when you kind of contacted me was basically we're succeeding, and it's torture. or something along those lines. That's my words. But you were doing really, really well. But as a product development team, you were wanting to, critical chain, I think you'd investigated that. So could you guys take it from there? Because I really don't know what was going on in your minds at the time.
Mm. The company was doing really, really well. So Specs as a whole was growing very quickly, and put a lot of investment into manufacturing and making sure that we could deliver really high quality product, getting our lead times down,
Yep.
and improving our ability to kind of service everybody. But we were starting to drown under the kind of requests for updates to products or tweaks that would make things better, and trying to do that alongside the things that would support the factory, and then just
Yep.
completely running out of time for the new product development stuff that was coming in over the top of that. And so, yeah, Specs as a company was growing, but I think looking ahead, we were worried about how we could get product development to support that growth, because that was kind of the next thing that we needed. Yeah, more new products,
Okay.
and things that can service other areas of the market. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, growing pains, I think, is a good way of phrasing it. We've sort of had ways of working and ways of interacting. Like during my time, I think we grew from one site to three, so we're across three buildings. Our team doubled in size, different countries, different requests from different stakeholders in those countries. So yeah, we were just trying to keep up with it, and we were still using some of the same processes that we had, and I think we recognized that we needed to sort of rethink some of them. And we'd been exposed to some theory from the manufacturing side, because we had a physical factory, and these ideas of lean and single piece flow, and we could see how that could help with projects and information flow, especially as we're handing over to other teams. Yeah, so we started digging into theory of constraints, and we called up the expert.
And you had, was it a colleague that you'd worked with, had done somewhere else in Christchurch, and that had a little bit of critical chain stuff. It was, that's in my memory, but I might, when you get to my age, which is just slightly less than your ages combined, you forget details. But I have a vague vague recollection that you'd kind of heard a little bit about critical chain being
Yeah,
used somewhere else.
yeah, we'd gone to visit another manufacturing site in Christchurch Scope, and they were using Critical Chain, and we'd seen the way that they were managing projects just a bit, seen a few things, and they were using Agile kind of over the top of that as well. And we thought, okay, in there might be some ideas that we want to pick up, and it would be helpful to find someone who can help us work out which parts of that are going to help solve our problems.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. So let's skip why don't we skip to the end of the story and just sum up. If you were going to go out and show off, and then I'll get rid of you guys. If you were going to go out and show off about what you did, what are some numbers before and after, kind of numbers, like project lead times, stuff like that, that just kind of like sum up the journey.
Do you want to do that one, Hugo?
Yeah, I think the big one was probably the project lead time. So we cut that from I think 13 months was our average. Some were longer than that. We cut that down to about 6 months. So that was a big one.
Any others that jump out? 'Cause, I mean, that's roughly that's halving roughly. Anything else that jump out? How many products are you able to put out a year now, say, for instance, compared to what you were before?
Yeah, before we were, I think that the previous 2 years we'd done like one really major product and a couple of smaller updates. And then this year it'll be, I think, 4 major products, and some medium-sized product launches in there as well, that we kind of weren't doing those ones before.
So with Critical Chain, the bit that people, the selling point with Critical Chain is on time delivery. Was that interesting, or was that appealing? Was it relevant, or was there other stuff? Was it
That
like
was
a,
initially what we were shooting for, I think.
yep,
Yeah, we were initially trying to deliver these projects on these dates.
yep,
And it was quite a planning focus, it was
mm-hmm,
through the lens of Gantt charts and that type of thing. But quite quickly we realized that uh, we were interacting with other teams. So we were getting information from all of our sales team. We were handing off to manufacturing, handing off to marketing, handing
yep,
off to the sales guys at the end, and they all had to fit it into their sequence of things. And so it actually became about that cadence was what we were
yes,
most interested in.
yep.
Can we?
So it was fitting in with the
Yeah.
rest of the business.
Mm,
Yeah, that was a bit when I've kind of summed this up, and why I titled this Critical Cadence was, with a little bit of time goes by, you kind of look back and goes, what was, and it was actually the ability to, so the word critical, so I came up with the name Critical Cadence when I was in a cafe that had just enough 4G signal that I could sit, and I was driving from Christchurch up to Picton and stopping on the way to Kaikoura, and I wanted to come up with a name that kind of that summed up what you guys were doing, and I wanted it to have critical in it, because obviously it means important, but it's also this critical path and critical chain, and I sat talking or typing to Chat GPT, trying to untangle what was kind of difference about what you guys needed as a business, because critical chain and critical path are talking about, and I'm doing it, there's much more to it than that, but they're talking about the Gantt chart and the stuff that goes on inside
mm.
a project aiming to deliver stuff on time. But your version of on time was actually different. It was this drip, drip, drip that fit in with the rest of the business. And so on time didn't, hang on, no, I'm going to tangle up the words. When you think about on time, it's like, okay, we want something, then we want something, then we want something, then go back and
Mm.
come up with a plan that delivers then, and then. But it was actually the cadence, the outcome of this repeatable kind of ability to deliver stuff that was kind of like calm. So cadence felt like the good word. And I think
Yeah,
that's a word you guys would use anyway in your language.
yeah, and I think that having that target time it's often a pull technique, especially from people who are interested in the project. They're like, "Hey, we need this date," and it pulls
Yep.
everyone towards it. But if you can get your processes up so that they're delivering regularly, and you're just pushing it through, and they can see that, they're actually not too worried about um,
The
the dates
precision
because
of
they
the,
have confidence that you're going to hit it. They can see that you're progressing towards it.
yeah. Okay. So what you've
Yeah.
described, I guess, is the lead time's down significantly, but there's almost this calmness of delivery when just stuff comes out. You're working very, very hard on each individual update or each new product thing, and it's all really important work. But the main thing as a business is that it's it's kind of calm, but it's productively calm. It's not lazy calm, if that's a word.
Mm,
Okay.
mm.
All
Yeah,
right.
I think thinking about the numbers as well, though, the other numbers that I'd pull out are like the number of projects that we're working on.
Yes.
So at the point of the email last year, and reaching out to you, I think we had about 27 different things on the go, and some of those were small.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, across the team, there was each engineer working on two or three different things,
Yep.
and not really working with each other on those. We had started out with a very small team, and it was one engineer working on one project. And then as the company had grown, we brought in more engineers, and they were working on one project, so we were doing more projects.
Yes.
Um, and that was our way of growing. But that was really starting to hit a limit. And all of those things were crashing into each other at the point where they were leave the team. So yeah, we
Yes.
went from 27. I think at the beginning of the year we cut that down to about 7, maybe 8,
Mm.
and then now we're down to 3.
Wow.
So we've cut
Yeah.
that down again.
So that means you're doing less work.
We're
Yes,
getting through them quicker and quicker. Yeah, so trying to find that focus, and just have one of the things that we found really tricky was knowing how to prioritize things on different projects.
Mm,
Um, if something's gone wrong on two things, then which one do we jump in and fix first? And okay, sometimes it doesn't actually take that long to work that out, but there's still this kind of moment where the team stops and comes to you and says, "Hey, what do you want us to do here?"
yep.
Whereas just dropping that down and having more people working on one project, then actually they're brilliant, they're independent, and they can solve those priorities within a project. That's really straightforward. They know within that
Yep.
project, if that's what we're focusing on delivering, then they're familiar with
Yes.
everything that's going on. And if two things have gone wrong, they already know which one they're going to fix first, and they're straight onto
That's
that. And
good.
we don't lose any
So it's
time.
intensity, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's the
yeah,
intensity that the limiting the number forces you to focus with intensity. Whereas that the when you've got 27, let's say 20 of them were kind of important, you can keep everyone really, really busy.
Mm.
And they never have to talk to each other. Well, apart from when they're having a cup of coffee and stuff, and they can sit there, and that's probably quite nice. Actually, I'm thinking the introvert in me, my dominant kind of introversion, going, oh, that just sounds so lovely. But then, if the key injection, to use a theory of constraints kind of term, the key change that you made was actually limiting the number of active projects, so that they weren't diluted. They were focused and intense, but that probably meant that you had to talk to each other a lot more.
Yeah, we did. People were working together, which is great. People were suddenly sharing ideas. Mentoring was a lot easier.
Yep.
You could leverage other people's skills. I think that was definitely one of the big changes that we made. Um, it it did a few things. It limited scope creep, which was good. I think
Yep.
when we were working on a lot of projects, it was easy for little things to get added and for a
Of
12-month
course.
project to become a 15-month project. And
Yep.
I think external stakeholders realized that. And so they tried to get everything into that project when it was being worked on because
Yeah.
that's
because
the
then
only
it's
time
another
you can do
13-month lead time if you want to make that change
Yeah.
later. Yeah.
But
Yep.
if you deliver it, if you smash it out in 6 months, they they said there isn't a chance for that. Um,
That's good. But then they also get a chance if there's something really important to
mm,
bring it in 6 months later or so, and squeeze in an update, I guess, because you're just have so much more flexibility.
mm.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's quite good. So there's almost like a cultural change, at least at your team level, of kind of sort of siloed introspection to probably collaborative introspection. Are there better words to describe that?
Yeah, I think that was a big culture change actually. We had to paint a bit of a new vision on how the team was going to operate. And
Yep.
like most teams, you have your experts in different domains. This person's really good at this and that. And I think
Yep.
historically we used to place projects and tasks based on that. You're
Hmm.
utilizing your resource for the best you can.
Yes.
And so that was something that um, we had to work on as some people lost that expertise, suddenly that they were working on other tasks, and autonomy as well. They were sort of the master of their projects, and then
Yes.
you had to share that with other people. So that was a bit of a culture shift that you just have to support.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, that's really, really, really interesting though, because without supporting that would have killed you. Um, you could
Mm.
do all of the practical, logistical stuff, but without protecting people's status, encouraging the collaboration, making sure that they don't get too exhausted. I guess because if you're suddenly talking a lot more, that's actually quite exhausting if you're used to sitting and working I guess, at a CAD screen and stuff, nice and quietly. And there's an emotional and mental and physical burden of actually having to work together. So you guys had to manage that more carefully, because it was quite a change, I would think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we had a pretty great team, but it's yeah, you've got to sort of support that. But I think having that overall objective really helped. I think it's quite clarifying when everyone's
Mm,
working towards releasing this one project or this one product. It cuts
Mm.
through the fat
yep.
on decisions, which is good.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think like looking back at where we started at the beginning of the year, and trying to start that culture shift, one of the things that the team told us we got wrong, was actually still having too many projects on the go. Although like
Mm,
for them cutting down to 7 projects was already a big shift, and it's like, whoa,
yep.
Mm.
this is way less. But actually, I think in hindsight that was still too many, and it kind of created this whiplash effect for them, going from one project to another as priorities changed, or as things went wrong and
Yep.
we needed to kind of put a bit more resource into this project because all of a sudden there's an issue that's
Hmm.
going to take a little bit more time and effort to resolve. So people within the team were kind of switching around between those 7 projects more. Um,
Yes.
Whereas actually
Oh,
in our old state they weren't, because they had their own projects,
yep.
and so they might switch between sort of 3 of their own things, but they were
Mm.
kind of self-managing in a way which things that they needed to work on at that time.
Yeah.
Whereas all of a sudden we were directing which things they needed to work on.
Yeah.
And so that kind of whiplash effect of still having 7 things on the go
Mm.
was, yeah, really, really tricky for them. And that
That's
sometimes you'd
interesting.
work on
So,
something for 2 or 3 days and then it'd be a different project,
yeah.
because that was where we needed
So they
some
actually
extra
preferred
effort. So
having 2 or 3,
yeah,
and what your
yeah,
team was about 10 or 12? Am I?
yeah, 10,
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
9, 9.
9. Yeah. And so they're busy doing this, and they went from, so that middle ground was actually harder for them than the
Mm,
extreme of having
mm.
2 or 3. Okay, I didn't realize that. That's good.
Yeah, I think the other thing as well is like, working with designers, and there's this kind of creative or very intense thinking side of doing that work sometimes.
Yes.
So sometimes there's pretty straightforward things, and you can do 4 things in an hour and tick those tasks off and they're done. And then
Yep.
sometimes it is 4 or 5 hours of sitting down and problem solving something, or
Yep.
being very thorough in reviewing something, or coming up with a lot of different ideas. And I think that gets a lot trickier in that middle ground, and is, yeah, simpler when there's less projects on the go at once, because that kind
Yeah.
of context of what you're working on in the project is important. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I think most people I think are familiar with like the design diamond thing that you do, where you
Yep.
kind of start with a problem and then you go out and say all the ways I could solve the problem, and you kind of narrow it
Yep.
back in again.
Mhm.
Um, I think in the same way that there are like real world, well, there are like natural diamonds or lab grown diamonds in the real world. You can do that design diamond kind of maybe naturally,
Yeah.
or lab grown, where you put all the pressure on in a lab.
Hmm.
But I think there's also some differences there where maybe the analogy falls over, and I won't try and claim that natural diamonds are better than lab grown ones, but when you put that time pressure on
Yep.
the design, um, the solution generation that you do, I think
Yeah.
can be artificial. And it's a skill that you start to learn when you do that kind of work, is that you can come up with a lot of ideas from a problem.
Yep.
But there can be like a kind of artificial way of doing it just to generate the ideas.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
there's a more natural way of doing it when you're really spending a lot of time thinking about
There's a
the
lot of mulling, isn't
problem.
there?
Yeah,
Yep.
you're under the mountain, I
Mm.
guess,
Yeah.
to
And
use
and
the
you cook
diamond thing.
steak differently,
Mm,
than how you cook a stew. And some things require that fast uh, stuff. But yeah, yeah, product. I know, like with writing, there's just so much. It's just like real slow cooker stuff
Mm.
most of the time. Yeah. Okay. Actually,
Mm.
that's a really
And so, yeah, I think
yeah.
even if it wasn't like a time thing, it did have an effect on the way that and the mana that I had in the work that they were doing,
Yeah.
um, and also in the kind of the types of solutions and the quality of the solutions that they were
Yeah.
generating, and the ability
Okay.
to kind of spot the risks or problems with those as we were coming up with them.
Okay.
Um,
That's
The other thing
interesting.
that came from like focusing on projects, like limiting the projects that we're working on, is there's that metaphor of a river and 12
Yeah.
streams feeding into it. So we had, 27 streams feeding into our river of work. And when we blocked most of those off and we only had, say, three, the river
Mm.
level went down and suddenly you could see logs and rocks and,
Yep.
a car that was impeding the flow before, which you
Yep.
weren't aware of. And so I think that's another big part of what Ben and I worked on was as we focused, we hit these bottlenecks and these struggles
Yep.
um, because we were moving a lot quicker or we were relying on other people more. And
And you
that
could hide
spurred a
them
bunch
before.
of, yeah,
That they were,
that spurred a bunch of
yeah.
improvement.
So before you would actually naturally hire another engineer, uh, or you would start another project, and that would lift up the water level,
Mm,
and it would hide, so you didn't actually have to tackle those problems because they sort themselves out over time. I remember when you guys sort of, it was almost like this. You just suddenly just put the foot down, and became like your whole teams went into obstacle problem solving mode, and it was almost like when people talk about that hive, and it was where they all you all just focus on the problems. What's stopping us?
mm.
And it sounded. I remember talking, and you guys were almost giddy with, I think, with the excitement of how joyful it was to actually get together and all you and actually run through and just solve these problems.
Mm.
So I hope you don't mind me saying you were giddy with excitement, but I just remember it just felt like actually my dog's here, and I just keep thinking that there's so much in life. Like she's a town dog, but really she just wants to be a dog. So when we take her out to the beach, she runs around like a dog, and like oh, it's just. And there's a totally different look and feel to the dog. And I remember after you guys told me about how you'd sat down and had those sessions where you got everyone working together. You
Mm.
two looked like you'd roamed free for a while, and it was just it actually felt vaguely joyous rather than giddy. Um,
Yeah, that's great because we were being challenged, by our leadership to pick up the pace and deliver more. But at the same time, they're incredibly supportive. They said,
yep,
what do you need? How can we help? And so I think, in that journey, we felt like we were very empowered, like we had the mandate
mm,
to make
yep,
changes. And as we saw the rocks and the cars at the bottom, yeah, we were able to do those. I think like one that pops to mind was Ben when we try and get prototypes through our factory, it used to take,
yep,
I think it was like 4 days, but that's
three or
just
four
because
days.
you put it into the sequence, someone plans it, they allocate resource, da
yep,
da 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 da. But Ben managed to get that down to 1 day. And so suddenly we could actually get to like a good concept within a week, maybe, as
yep.
opposed to two or
Because
three
you weren't
weeks.
Mm.
waiting. That's real.
And that, to be honest, that was never a problem last year because we had a million other things to do. So
Yeah.
I'd send it in, I'd start working on something else and get that done, and then
Oh,
the
and then
prototype would turn
suddenly
up, and I'd switch back to this. Yeah,
you go,
Yeah.
it's taking 4 days. What do we do? What do we do?
yeah.
And
So I think that's a good example of one of those logs that was in the river. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
am I remembering this correctly that there was there were a few people I remember. There was Michael, and there were some others there, and there was almost in the past you'd never quite had you talked and you got along and all that kind of stuff, but you never quite had to work closely together. And then I remember there's this one bit where I think Ben, you were working closely with someone in the factory, and you go there and you'd line up stuff so that when they came in the morning, they had stuff ready for them. And I think you may even had a little tiny Kanban board or something that you worked on. Could you talk us a little bit more about the logistics of that? Because I know some of the people on the call will go, "Oh, yeah, factory product development." Someone, could you kind of just try and make that a little bit more imaginable?
Mm.
Give me the film director's version of that.
Ooh. Um, I think, yeah, we have a few experts in our space, and we absolutely rely on them for prototyping, product development, things like that. Especially skills like sewing, take a really long time to pick up, and while I can join two pieces of fabric together, I can't do it to the level that we need to
Yes.
do it
Yep.
for getting products ready to go into manufacturing and getting
Hmm.
them out with customers and saying, "Hey, what do you think of this?" Because if I show them what I've made, they're never gonna want to buy it. So yeah, we were trying to coordinate with those people who also have to live in a factory world, and
Yeah.
have jobs come through, and they need to finish those jobs on a schedule.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it was a little bit of negotiation, but again, like we were given the resource, which was awesome.
Hmm.
And yeah, we just set up our own kind of prototyping cell through the factory. And again, with the improvements that they were making, they knew that they kind of had enough buffer. Um,
Yes.
at the beginning of the factory flow, there was a little bit there because
Hmm.
actually our bottleneck in the factory was kind of thing feeding into production. So they put a
Yep.
little bit of buffer in front of it, and we were actually able to use that as well so that we could sneak in ahead of the queue.
Yep.
And yeah, we were just kind of given permission to jump the queue.
Mm. Yeah,
And it was good for
we sort of
everyone.
did the same thing we did with the team. So we
Yep.
aligned everyone's objective, like everyone towards the objective, of
Mm,
delivering this project, and then
Hmm.
started expanding that outside of our team to,
mm.
the
Actually,
manufacturing team also were
Yes.
bought into delivering this project, and they were
Yep.
happy to sacrifice a bit of lead time or a bit of this to make that happen.
mm.
Yep.
One of the other really key things there actually is prioritization. And so in
Mm.
working with them, um, that was kind of part of the agreement was we have one project that we're focusing on setting up in manufacturing,
Yep.
and then outside of that we have like a couple of prototype things on different projects. But we
Hmm.
were just working with one person in the factory for those. But the rest of the factory team were only focused on one thing at once. And again, that was something that I think when we were working on 7 projects at the beginning of the year actually became a little bit of a bottleneck to that
Yep.
process, um, or to our development. Sorry, so we were having kind of
Mm.
2 or 3 things that we wanted to put into that one project. Let's focus on setting this up in
Right.
manufacturing slot.
Hmm.
So they were banging into each other and waiting for a bit before we could work on them. Um, and so yeah, that's also led to us wanting to work on less at once in our
Okay.
team, and then speed up the transition into manufacturing.
That's really interesting. So, okay, so I'm just going to just roll back and just consolidate all this in my head. So there was a massive reduction from the number of active projects, which, when they had so many of them, meant that people could work alone, switch between them, keep themselves busy, but it was taking a long time to deliver any one thing. And then you reduced it back to 6 or 7, and that made you feel good, but it probably created a lot of pain. And rather than switching back to 27 projects, you went the other way, and suddenly it started working, but it meant that you had to go into obstacle solving mode and much more. You had to start collaborating more actively,
Mm,
but
mm.
on fewer things.
Yeah, yeah, and again, having fewer things on the go, we need to speed those things up to keep the
Mm.
throughput over the year,
Yes.
where we want it. So that's I think the stage that we're in now, and the thing that we're kind of focusing on next is how do we speed up that work? Because yeah, we've
Yep.
cut the number of things that we're working on, but if we don't continue to speed up, then actually we won't meet
Yeah.
our target.
So it's all
That
very
totally makes sense.
counterintuitive, really, because
Mm,
to deliver more we did less. And then to pump out more, we spent less time on it in that we spent time improving processes.
Mm,
So yeah, we cut down the projects, and then I think probably 4 hours a week or more, Ben and I were looking at improvements,
yep.
um, as opposed to day-to-day work to deliver.
Yeah. That's interesting, isn't it, though? So it's you kind of speed up the flow of the river, maybe to go back to that. And that's what you were doing. You're looking about how to speed up the actual
Yeah,
flow of
yeah.
stuff. Okay, I want to now go from the nitty gritty because I mean there's so much all of that's kind of tweaks, but there's another tweak that was actually a really, really, really big tweak. And now she's not here to defend herself, but we're going to say nice things about her. Um, Kim, your boss, she one of the big things that she did is kind of I'm going to call it senior leadership team wrangling. She got you the in the motorcade method stuff that I have, the stack the deck stuff. I call it debottleneck the leader, but this was effectively the bottleneck to you guys actually being able um to work this way was actually getting them together to prioritize and to unblock you guys when you were when you got blocked. So again, they had to limit stuff. They had to find time together, and they also had to go into obstacle. You had to take obstacles to them and say, "Please help." So, could you talk about because I don't know, but I suspect it would have been much harder for you guys to do that directly than it was for Kim, who was had a foot in both camps. So, could you guys talk about that? Make her sound heroic too.
Do you want to start off with the prioritization bit here?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, no, Kim was fantastic. So we had, as the company grew, we had sales leaders in different regions and, um, you know, different funding models, different patient focuses, um, different level of familiarity with the products. You had some people who were power users and they wanted all these little extra things. And then you had some people who were seeing the product for the first time and it's like, this is amazing. We just want more of it.
Yep.
So we sort of had these variety of requests, and a lot of it was coming through us, and then
Yep.
we would sort of Chinese whisper it back to the other people to try and negotiate,
Yep.
what we work on. So yeah, Kim was great in basically moving all that conversation sort of out and above our team.
Yep.
And then each week we'd talk to them about it. And I think
And
they
they'd
enjoyed
talk
it.
to each other about it as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, we'd all have an opportunity to kind of do that prioritization together. Whereas previously it was us trying to do the prioritization and listening to all of them, but them not having the opportunity to listen to what each other is saying and
Mm.
actually say, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, I think actually no, we should work on that instead.
Yeah.
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 And it was sort of the velocity of conversations because we wouldn't get
Mm.
everything right all the time. Sometimes our project would drift off what they were intending, or
Hmm.
a date was more important than the scale of the launch, or vice versa. So
Yep.
having that velocity of conversation and feedback, yeah, it was just constantly bringing us back on track.
So it was the same thing, but in different directions. If when you talk about talking with the factory, you were having more frequent conversations about fewer things,
Mm,
but it was the same thing. You were having more frequent conversations about fewer things at a high level. It's like almost like a fractal thing there.
mm,
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, that's
Mm.
interesting. How did
Yeah.
Kim set that up? Because I know it's quite a big, and I know you had some people in one of your company leaders is in the UK.
Mm.
Could you just describe generally, sort of broadly, what the mechanism was to get the leaderships there steering the ship?
Yeah, I think ultimately it was about keeping us accountable. So it was an opportunity for our team to present back as to, how projects are tracking and
Yep.
what we need input on. But yeah, I think she pitched it well that, we rely on quality inputs to give good outputs.
Yep. But was
And there
it
were definitely
hard?
times where she pushed us as well to make sure that we gave a really quick response to that feedback. And that was helpful just for building the trust and the relationship and showing we're listening. And
yeah. And again, in a way, your history of working in individuals in your team as silos, who still work together, but you know worked on one thing or several things separately. There was almost like a fractal version of that, and that product development was quite siloed in a way with the leadership, and I imagine your leadership team was also kind of off doing that. You know, they've all got different pieces, so getting them together probably helped broadly get the whole company aligned. I guess is
Yeah, I think the silo, I wouldn't call it silos, but I think there were strong connections between different stakeholders, but that kind of cohesive, you know,
yes,
everyone gets the message on and hears it at the same time. It wouldn't happen at the pace that it needed to. You know, it
yes.
would be at a project review once a month, or it would be at an all hands meeting. But moving that to weekly, it just it made a big difference.
And one of the things with product development is me and my team are working on projects and like these long-term things, you know, and that's our world. So it's easy for us to work on those things. But a lot of the people in other teams that we need to be working with, whether it's sales or manufacturing or something, they're very day to day, and they've got 3 fires burning that they need to get back to and that kind of thing. But actually, one of the things we identified really early on was that the speed of feedback was a bit of a bottleneck to us sometimes, and that was an area where we didn't always need it to be really fast, but there were critical times where we needed that feedback to be really, really quick. And so having that senior leadership group listening to us, we were able to ask them whether it was them that we needed the feedback from or someone in their team that we needed the feedback from. They were able to enable that feedback to come through much, much faster at the critical points that we needed it.
Okay.
As opposed to it being kind of another long-term focus, not a fire request just sitting in their inbox kind of thing, you know.
So that's really interesting. So again, you reduce the number of things, but you increase the intensity of and almost you increase the management of fewer things. So you had to actively. It's just so easy, isn't it, to go, oh, we'll get back to that when it just sorts itself out. But some things that they set you up in a place where you just couldn't do that. So I'm reaching a little bit here. I know your team culture kind of changed. Same nice people doing the same nice stuff, but it just changed a bit. Do you think that the I mean, you got senior leaders here, GMs and all sorts of fancy, you know, sounding job titles, CFOs, CEOs, that kind of thing. Do you think it helped change the culture of the company at all, more broadly, or am I maybe reaching a bit too far?
I think it definitely changed the culture of how our team fits with the rest of the company and how we work with the rest of the company. And a lot with manufacturing as well. They were really, really supportive of us and trying to make this change and make this improvement. But now that we've been doing it for a little while and we've actually kind of delivered some new products and we've been able to show them the results and the impact of that, and kind of share the story of what the product's done when we've got it out there with them as well, that actually now they're excited by it as well. They were always supportive, but now they're more excited. And I think
the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah. I've seen the question of how do we persuade the other departments. To be honest, I think that was just us having a really great supportive leadership team made that initial switch. And it was other departmental managers making it really clear to their teams that at this point that design turns up and wants you to do this, do that first. Like it
Yep.
doesn't matter what other thing I'm measuring you on today,
Yes.
do their thing first and then catch up where you can on that other thing.
Yeah,
And
and it's probably in their interest as well. Like I think we made things better for other teams.
You did. I'm pretty sure you did. Yeah.
Actually, and they could see that that shift from you know, we don't really talk much, and then suddenly we throw this 4 week project at you, you know, and you have to try and slot it into your day-to-day work, and then there's silence
Yep.
for another month, and then you know, going to more of a weekly thing. I think every Thursday we used to have something for manufacturing. You know, that was something we
Yep.
introduced. Every week we get feedback from senior leadership. So there was a cadence to it, and people definitely saw the benefit for that, and that challenged us to get better as well because we were interacting with people. We
Yeah.
learned that we had to give them what they needed, which
Hmm.
sounds really simple, but I think before we used to give them what they needed to get started, but there would be, you know, there'd be pieces missing, and we'd know we can get it to them when they probably
Yeah.
need it all. But so we started getting better at withholding things until they were ready for them to pick it
And
up
prepping
completely.
them properly. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
lovely.
And
That's
so I think those other teams saw the benefit of that. So it's a
yeah. Okay.
One
That's
one of
nice.
the trickier things in there though that actually that we're still um, have been working on kind of through the second half of this year is the ability to make change easy for those other teams, particularly manufacturing, quality, production,
Yep.
operations, supply chain, all those kind of people that sit downstream from us in terms of
Yes.
idea to production and product. Um, and that's been another kind of second culture shift that we've been trying to work
I
on.
remember you
Um,
talking about this. Yeah.
Mm.
Keep
So
going. Could you explain?
sometimes we can, or we are now focusing on giving them everything that they need to do the task.
Yep.
But then there's also situations where because we're listening to more people, we're getting more ideas and there's more feedback and
mm,
input.
mm,
And sometimes ideas are awesome and would make a massive difference to the product or to how easy other things are going to do, other things are
Yep.
going to be to deliver the project. Um, but it might mean that one person who's already been given their set and has delivered or started their
Right.
section of that project now actually needs to have that changed because we need to
mm.
make a change to something. Um, yeah, so working through that has, I mean, it's just been a lot of like close working with people and um, making them feel part of the project team as well.
Yes. Yeah. So there's not just the processy stuff of limiting the number of active
Mm,
projects. You got problem solving, the obstacle removal, that kind of
Yeah.
cultural change. But there's a lot of stuff about actually interacting more frequently and more thoughtfully with other people, and it's all enabled because there's less to focus on, and it's
mm,
good for them.
mm. And there's also been times where we've had to spend our improvements time working on their bit of the process and helping them,
Yes.
remove gates or sign-offs or steps, hoops that they have to jump through to
Yeah.
make that change easier for them. But that's a
Yep.
massive benefit to us in this project and all projects going forward, kind of thing, when we can get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's really good.
I think often in
So
a factory or medical device world, things the default nature of stuff ends up very controlled and
mm,
um, can't think of the right words, but yeah, there's an intention of having a lot of control and having this very sequential
yes.
process, and
Yeah,
that
waterfall.
yeah, waterfall, and that can make changes seem really difficult.
Yes.
The appearance of um, yeah, they just look like they're going to be really hard.
Yep. So you had to get a little bit clever about how you made changes, because some of them were probably a lot easier than they looked, and some of them would have been a lot harder. Maybe you have to get ahead of them. Yeah, this is cool. Hey, I'm gonna we've got about 20 minutes on the clock here. So what I'm wondering of now, Unless there's anything, any topic you just go, let's tell you about this. If we might just switch back to gallery view with everyone, and just see if there's any questions or
Yeah, that'd
thoughts.
be great.
Yeah, I know I kind of know your story, and I'm pretending kind of not to a bit, but I think it might be useful if other people have a chance to comment or make suggestions. Uh, and please, everyone, don't let me down by not asking questions. This is your chance to have a moment in the hang on, remove spotlight. A moment in the sun. So, ladies, gentlemen, any thoughts, any comments? You can pop it in the chat, or if you feel like coming on and saying something, either is good.
Well, I just want to say thanks for saying about how you persuaded other people, because it was fascinating that actually it was about you had to change what you were doing to make something beneficial for them,
Mm.
And that's something I'm going to be rethinking about. I think
Mm.
that's really good. Thank you.
Actually, that is a really good point. That's one of those things that I have learned much more in the latter third of my career than I could ever cope with earlier in my career. And so Ben and Hugo, you're about 20 years ahead of me. So good work.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah, you sort of had to. We ended up putting a bit more effort into the inputs to their work, but yeah, it made their lives a lot easier and
I
helped
think
what we were after.
yeah, I think like I look back at where I was last year, and one of the things that I would have wanted would be for specs to say product development is our priority as an organization, and therefore other teams have KPIs that they do this for product development type approach. But actually, I think that would have been just a much harder way of getting improvements done, as opposed to just working with people and trying to make our lives and their lives easier.
Yeah, that's a good point. Did you guys want to have a little read of Jim's question? I can read it out. Interesting how you recognize the need to reduce WIP, prioritize projects, and zooming out to engage management. Yep, so that's the kind of thing. Do you have a working heuristic, or better, an algorithm for work intake?
We don't. I built one actually prior to jumping onto any of this, and it was an algorithm. But actually, I think we found that for us and for the company, it was better to just have a conversation. And we have that scheduled for every 3 months. So once a quarter, we catch up and we have a conversation about the next projects that should be coming through. Outside of that, we do try and limit things that come up, but we are catching up once a week, and so as those things pop up, if somebody does want to make a case that yeah, we should change what we're working on for this quarter and drop something in, then we can have a discussion about it then. And I think it's still a small enough team and like product development team and organization that it's better just to have the conversation about it, because there's a lot of context of what kind of momentum we have on a project, or what kind of risk is left in delivering this one, or the way that we might swap from doing this to something else, that would be tricky to put into a calculation.
Yeah, there was quite a lot of work I remember you'd put into work that came in. So, the financial impact, the user impact, where it fits in the business strategy. But the key to it all, I think, was prioritization and focus. So however you come to that conclusion, if you can like end up with a few that you're working on at a time, you kind of protect that. So it's not going to change in every 3 months, and people know what they're working on.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, Yeah, so I think the only output from it that we take is prioritization.
Mm.
And therefore doesn't really matter what we do before that, as long as there's kind of enough confidence that whatever approach we took would end up with the same priorities.
Yeah.
Very
A lot of
similar
it is still down
priorities.
to sort of like impact effort type conversations.
Yeah, and you've got to have
Quite
those
a lot of
conversations and balance them, and someone might have a reason why if you came up with something algorithmic, it just doesn't make sense. Because there's something missing. But the algorithm or whatever, however you do it, the conversation sorts all that out, doesn't it? It almost feels like I'm going to reach a bit here, but a big part of this is having a conversation-driven culture. It's a big leap, but it's probably one of the changes. You're actually talking with more people about fewer things, and you're using your problem-solving skills and collaboration skills. And the word that I think I introduced to you guys, co-creation. Yeah, that's it kind of sums up just working together, isn't it? Talking, creating solutions. Now, I think, Andreas, did you want to ask a question or make a comment there? Are you just off mic?
I can read it myself. So, you spoke about your insights on your journey, and I'm also a learner. What I would like to hear from you is what is the most surprising insight, Ben or Hugo, on the nature of those beasts, those bottlenecks, considering your experiences so far.
I think for me, something that I didn't expect was I call it entropy, because it's a natural devolution into chaos. So at the start, we were kind of doing these fixes for bottlenecks, and we thought that we'd just make the fix and we'd move on and we'd fix something else and keep going. But some of those took careful management, or actually it was more just constant tweaking, because the culture was changing and what we were working on was changing and how we were working on it was changing as well. The fix that we put in place for something at that point then was no longer really working properly, or maybe was counterproductive or went against something else that we wanted to try later. And that was something for us that we had to learn as the improvers, as trying to troubleshoot those bottlenecks. But it was also a kind of cultural thing that we also needed the team to come with us on as well. There were a few times where there was maybe frustration about we'd come in and said, okay, we're making this change and this is how we're doing this section of our work now, and that's to try and remove this bottleneck. And then 4 or 5 weeks later, we'd change that again, or we'd say, oh, no, don't do that now because that's causing this other downstream problem. There was a bit of frustration from some people on the
forming
nature
and storming.
Of, yeah.
That's a really good point. Hugo, do you have
I think that they're not big bang. Like bottlenecks, I think I thought of them as you fix it and you're done. But they move around and they require thoughtful, frequent attention. So that's a culture shift, which I think is a good one, where you become quite solution focused. And then when you start seeing them, you think about the problem more. So it's less about my team, your team. You actually start seeing other people's bottlenecks, and you almost want to help them because it's ultimately going to help the flow of the river.
Actually, that's really interesting. Can I just check? Do you have a smaller team now than you did when we first started working together?
And Hugo's moved on to a new role
Hugo's
4 weeks ago. So we are temporarily smaller again.
So you limited the number of projects and limited the number of people, and things have actually got better. So you would I'll give you a hint. just keep getting rid of people. It'll be amazing, the improvement. So it just occurred to me because I remember I was chatting to one of your ex-colleagues, Paul, a couple of days ago on LinkedIn. And it's just interesting how it's like slightly smaller team, and yet the results you couldn't if you think about it, it wasn't about on time. Although now you're probably on time because you just the cadence sort of fits in. Are we in on time with whatever you want to do, quarterly or that month, or there's an on time to us, but it's not precisely shipping something on a date. And I tried to say this at the start of the conversation, but I think when you have a date, often having a date is actually trying to make you more productive.
Mm.
That's the purpose of having a date. It's trying to actually make you more productive. But so the date is almost like the wedge that causes you to make decisions. But this time, what you actually wanted is lifting it up a level. Just thinking, in the time frame of a CEO or a CFO or a chief product officer or whatever it is, we just want this regular rhythm of high quality improvements. And you got the productivity that come out of that by focusing down. And it's just I've been doing this like a lot of people on the call and who listen and watch this for a long time. And it's just so counterintuitive though, isn't it? You slowed down and you went faster.
Mm.
Yeah, we sort of I think the dates we're still trying to hit were still quite ambitious. Like I don't think we necessarily got more calm, but I think it felt less like hectic, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The whole team, it's always good to be halfway between like a beautiful meadow where you're lying down and a cliff where you're screaming. You want to be in the middle somewhere where you feel safe and supported, but you're also constantly trying to challenge and drive things.
Yeah, the barbecue pit that sits between those two.
Yeah.
That sounds nice.
But when you've just got a few things you're focusing on and you're working with others and you're bouncing off each other, I think it's easier to be in that middle place.
Okay. Are there any other thoughts or questions? Jack, go for it.
Hey guys. I really like what I heard a number of times where you went from whatever system you had to something that was better, and then you learned along the way, which is the whole point of any of these any continuous improvement kind of thinking. But the thing that I kept hearing was it's kind of funny because when we're in the middle of it, we don't think it's chaotic or we don't think it's hectic or whatever. But we had a system that was creating chaos for whatever reason. And it may not have been creating chaos for me, but it was creating chaos for somewhere else. And as a result, the whole system was chaotic. It was slow and such. And the efforts that you put into play, and maybe a few outside views that came in and say, hey, I see a lot of things bouncing around here. Is there some way that we could smooth the flow, improve, how many times this goes back for review, or, whatever the situation is, the end result is that we're reducing the amount of chaos in the system. And obviously reducing WIP is a easy win, but help. And I think, Richard, you were asking this question of like, well, how did you get people to see that was helpful? Like, it's once we can reduce the chaos and people can do what they're really good at, like, oh, this is actually kind of nice. Can we have more of that? And it feeds on itself. But I also like what one of you guys said, there's this, there's entropy, that the system tends to want to go back to revert back to whatever its norm is. So one of our jobs for me as a consultant outside, or for you guys on the inside, is kind of, let's keep giving the system enough of a shove to keep it moving in the right direction. I really like that. I love hearing these stories from any angle and listening for those ahas.
I love your point. I was actually going to come back to your comment because I keep thinking a lot of people embrace chaos theory, the Cynefin and stuff. And then they go, oh, it's chaotic. You can't do anything about it. Embrace the fact that it's chaotic. And yet I think just repeatedly, and it is part of the TOC kind of way of looking at things. And it's not just TOC, but it's like you can actually do things that reduce the chaos. If you want to, you just got to think a bit, and you'll never quite get to calm. But I like there's chaos up here, and then there's calm down here. But there's something in the middle that's like productive calm, or and I just really think that if you aim for that, it's imminently achievable. But if you believe in a lot of the chaos writing and you just go, oh no, we're screwed, we can't do anything about it, it's chaos, then you shut off a lot of cleverness. And you guys did just a fabulous, just a fabulous job of just coming in and tackling this stuff, along with Kim's help and along with your CEO, and the senior leadership team. It was almost like you were sneaking up on chaos, and then
Yeah,
they said,
we
do
almost
something.
embraced it in a way. Like you almost have to get more chaos to kill chaos. It's a bit like whack-a-mole. I think, when it's a big river, it's all swirling. It's quite hard to pick it out. But when you put some of these mechanisms in place, it's more chaos does appear. So you have to put the time, effort, and thought into. But it's easier. You can stop it. You can neutralize it, and then it gets easier.
That's why I like the entropy analogy, because within chemistry, like you can make changes which move a large amount of chaos from one bit of the system to be a smaller amount of chaos in another bit of a system, but you're still reducing the chaos of the system as a whole. And so I think that's, again, one of those things that we've had to work on, especially in bringing other teams on that journey of making change after we've set them up to do something and after they've already started and they're halfway through their process and they never had to change before. But hey, let's make this adjustment now. Let's redo that and reduce the chaos of the system as a whole.
I wonder if the chaos you guys are, the new chaos, it reminds me so much of that forming, storming, norming, and performing. I wonder if it's actually storming. It's like, not just with the people dynamics, but you do something different. And then you cause storming as people have to everyone has to adapt to it, and it's difficult. And the first time you try to do something different, it's really frustrating. It's like the first time you have to assemble an IKEA thing. It's really frustrating. But then when you get to the end and you realize that you've assembled it wrong and you go back and you do it properly, it's a lot less frustrating the second time. So I wonder if it is kind of like a storming kind of thing. I'm conscious of time now because we're going to run out of time. And I just want to wrap up just by saying thank you so much, gentlemen, for doing this. It was an absolute pleasure working with you guys. It was just really neat, and I just love I'm so glad we kind of we didn't prep for this too much. Actually, I'll tell everyone I'll confess what the preparation was. The preparation was, hey guys, we have to make each other look humbly awesome, okay? And that was our prep. But this was this was hard work, and it was and it was just nice to look back at what the highlights were, because when you're in the middle of it, it's kind of hard to see what's actually going on. And I'm just so proud of you guys and the work that we did together. But I love the idea more than anything else that it's actually helping. The end result of this is that more people out there in the world, I'm being quite purposeful, which I'm normally not, but I just love the fact that it's actually helping more people out in the world get better support. And that's just a really nice difference. You don't get that with banks so much at all.
No, 100%. That made a big difference. That was lovely working with you, Clarke.
Thank you.
Thank you for
it was good. Any final thoughts from either Ben or Hugo or anyone?
No, thank you very much, Pat.
Excellent work. Right, all of you, get back to work. Yeah, I'm going to get some lunch. So you all, thank you for joining in. And just so you all know, I'm trying to make a more regular thing of this, and I'm trying to get into a rhythm of this too. It's just so much fun, and I get to talk to all these exciting people without having to leave home, which is just lovely. All right, see you guys. Thank you.
Bye bye.